Hello everyone, and welcome to the Natural Food Pantry Education Initiative. My name is Harveen. We're at Barhaven today, and joining me for a discussion on digestion is holistic nutritionist Natasha Villeneuve. I'm super excited for this conversation today. Natasha is a fantastic holistic nutritionist with over 20 years of experience in the field of health and wellness, and in that time she's garnered a solid reputation as a trusted nutritional consultant, a speaker, a workshop facilitator, and so much more. Natasha is dedicated to guiding, empowering, and educating people so that they can really realize their true optimal health and well-being. And her areas of interest, one of her areas of interest include digestion, which we're going to talk about today, as well as brain health, mindful eating, female nutrition, and family nutrition. And Natasha also happens to be the lead educator for the Natural Food Pantry Education Initiative. So super excited, Natasha.
Thank you. Thank you for the warm welcome. I feel like the roles have reversed. Usually I'm the one doing the interviewing and the hosting. So this is really cool.
Spotlight you, exactly. So this is so great. I mean, this is the perfect time to be talking about digestion. Well, I think any time is a good time to talk about digestion. We talked a little bit about this a couple of weeks ago, Natasha, when we had our immunity event. You know, as we were talking about how digestion is the foundation of health.
Yeah.
And likewise, compromised digestion or bad digestion is the foundation of disease, right? And we'll talk a little bit about that. But it's so pertinent now when we talk about immunity, and digestion being really the source of immunity, or the first sort of cornerstone of immunity. So before we get into some of these details, Natasha, personally for you, what was the spark for you? Like, what initiated your passion and interest in digestive health specifically?
Well, this goes way back to when I was a teenager. When I was about 16 years old, I developed some pretty severe digestive issues.
Okay.
So I would eat a meal, and regardless of what it was that I ate, I would feel extremely bloated and uncomfortable afterward. And I didn't understand that there was a connection between the food I was eating and the symptoms I was experiencing.
Yeah.
And I was a little shy to, bring it up with family or go to the doctor about it. So I just didn't really do a whole lot about it, and I kind of suffered the symptoms. And along with that, at the same time in my life, I experienced some anxiety and depression. I was dealing with some mental health issues. The pressure from the bloating was causing some sciatica down my leg.
Yeah.
And I was really young. And then when I was almost 18 years old, my parents bought tickets to go see Anthony Robbins. He was coming to Ottawa to do his big personal power motivational seminar. It was like a 4-day weekend, Tony Robbins. And they had all the audio cassettes and everything. And at that time, if parents bought tickets to go, kids 18 and under could go for free.
Oh wow.
So they brought my brother and I along, and I wasn't too keen at first.
Yeah.
I thought I was 18, we're almost 18.
Not cool enough.
Yeah. But the whole weekend experience was life-changing, as I'm sure you can imagine. It was very empowering, it was life-changing, and on the last day of his 4-day experience, he talked about nutrition. He was promoting a program that was really popular at the time. It was called Fit for Life.
Okay.
And it involved proper food combining and a vegan diet. And so because the weekend was so empowering, I went home and I changed my diet overnight, like drastic changes overnight. And within a week, my digestive system symptoms had improved dramatically. And within about 2 weeks, I experienced almost full relief of my symptoms. Yeah, so that sparked my interest in nutrition. From there, I was studying architectural technology.
Oh wow!
And the whole time I was going to school for architecture, though, I was attending wellness expos in Toronto and reading about holistic nutrition.
Yeah.
So eventually, after several years of working in project management, I decided to pursue a career in holistic nutrition.
Of course, it's a phenomenal experience.
Right.
Well, and I think that's why I think so many people come to this field. It's personal experience, right? Yeah. And when you're able to tackle personally yourself, your own issues through your education, through learning, reading, whatever it is, the satisfaction and the empowerment is huge, right?
Yes.
And that's enough to spark a lifelong passion and interest,
Exactly.
right, in the whole field. That's phenomenal. And so, right, so on the subject of digestion specifically, Hippocrates has said this. He's so famous for saying this, and this is also a major thing in Ayurveda, which is in the Indian holistic system of health, which is that all disease starts in the gut. Right? So can you tell us a little bit about what that means?
Yeah, I mean, we've known it for a long time. We've known Ayurveda. How old is Ayurveda?
Over 5,000 years old.
Over 5,000 years old. So we've known it for a long time.
Yeah.
We just haven't had the science to really understand it and prove it fully.
Right.
Up until now.
Yeah.
And we're still evolving, right?
Yeah.
When it comes to the whole gut-brain connection and the idea that the gut is really our primary brain.
That's right.
Or some people consider it the secondary brain.
Yeah.
We definitely have known forever that there's this connection. Just think about sayings like, I have a gut feeling, right? I have a gut feeling. When we're experiencing heightened emotions like nervousness, we say, I have butterflies in my belly, right?
So the belly talks first,
the
right?
belly talks first.
Yeah.
And we now know that that's because we have this whole beautiful microbiome in the gut that is really foundational to our overall wellness. It's connected to all systems in the body and communicates with our brain and our immune system. And so digestion really is foundational, because when we think about it, if we break it down to the basics, right? We eat food, our body breaks it down to nutrients. Those nutrients are then used as building blocks for every single function in the body. So they're absorbed and utilized by the cells for energy production, metabolism, balancing our hormones, supporting immunity, you name it. So
building tissues, everything.
Healing, repairing, regenerating.
Yeah.
So if we're not digesting optimally, if that process is not functioning properly, and we're not breaking down the food to nutrients, and they're not being absorbed efficiently, then our systems won't be able to function optimally.
And we're producing toxins.
And then we're producing toxins if we're not eliminating. And so the gut really is foundational. It's connected to everything.
Yeah, I think I remember hearing it somewhere, reading it somewhere. There's more nerve endings in the gut than there are in the brain.
Isn't that wild?
That is wild. Yeah. Like, you think of the brain as being like, this is it. Like, this is the main computing center, right?
Yeah.
But this is really the first brain.
Yeah.
It's
we now know that 85% of our serotonin is produced in the gut.
Yeah.
Only 15% in the brain, and serotonin is a neurotransmitter that's involved in mood regulation and appetite and body temperature and so many functions. But it's considered a feel good. Some people think of it as a hormone, but it's really a neurotransmitter.
It's a neurotransmitter.
Yeah.
That's phenomenal. And so, on that note, can you tell us, like, what are some signs, signs of strong digestion? Like, when your digestion is working optimally, unobstructed, everything's going the way it should be, what does that look like and feel like?
Well, you'll feel energized for one thing.
Yes.
You're going to be absorbing all those life-supporting nutrients that your body needs, right? So your energy will be good. You'll feel content after you eat, but you won't feel bloated like I did when I was 16, or tired. You won't feel like you have to go take a nap. You shouldn't feel like you have to undo your pants, or take a Tums or something. So you should be able to function really well after eating, and throughout the day as well. Your energy should be able to carry you throughout the day. Also, brain function. If you're digesting properly, then your brain will be functioning smoothly and more clearly. Skin clarity and vibrancy is a sign of good digestion. Healthy immunity. It's normal to catch a cold or a flu. It's also normal to recover fairly easily from that cold or flu, right? So a healthy, vibrant, strong immune system. Since everything is connected with digestion, really, like overall health and well-being, vitality, those are all signs that, and of course elimination, I can't forget. Elimination, right?
Second half,
So proper elimination, we should be eliminating at least 1 to 3 times a day, having a full, healthy bowel movement, not experiencing constipation, diarrhea, discomfort.
And then in terms of, so on that note, what are some signs of a bad digestion, compromised digestion? We talked, I mean, constipation, as you mentioned, one. But what else?
Well, the digestive symptoms are the most obvious ones, right? Like the localized gas, bloating, constipation, diarrhea, heartburn, acid reflux, ulcers like Crohn's, colitis, inflammatory bowel conditions, food intolerances. Those are all issues of the gut. But because the gut is connected with everything, then symptoms like headaches or autoimmune conditions like joint inflammation and pain and allergies, asthma, brain fog, mood issues, depression, anxiety, mental health.
Yeah.
Again, you name it.
So it's the whole thing.
Yeah.
I was looking at the face map for acne.
Okay.
Right, so the liver line. I was looking at stomach. Stomach is here, or one of the areas for stomach, and I was noticing some things happening there. So I was like, okay, that makes sense with other things I've been experiencing.
Right.
But so many indicators, right, that you can self-assess.
Yes.
Right, and get a sense of where you're at.
And one of the things, sorry, I just want to add, one of the things that I love about digestion, like with my experience when I was a teenager, things shifted so quickly for me. So the body's self-healing, and the body is always striving toward health and healing. And when we do things to support the healing process and remove the causes of the problem, the body can shift and recover and heal. And that's what is really important to remember, and not to feel discouraged when we're experiencing some imbalances or symptoms of poor digestion.
I'm really glad you said that, Natasha. That is so encouraging, right? Because it's so easy to get depressed and overwhelmed with the signs of bad digestion or bad health in general. But it's so important to remember that the body's natural tendency, is to actually strive towards balance, towards health. So it is just about removing the obstructions and supporting the natural mechanism.
Exactly.
Right? As opposed to like, I'm lacking this, I'm lacking that, I'm in a state of deficiency. You have everything you need. It's just about getting rid of the pollutants or the bad practices or the bad eating habits or that kind of thing. I think that's really powerful. And then, so when we're talking about digestive disorders, I mean, you've mentioned some of those things, constipation, and then we're talking about more severe things like colitis or, IBS or Crohn's or that kind of thing. What are some other contributing factors to that?
Definitely stress. We can't leave stress out. Right?
Stress
would be number one on the list. And part of the reason behind that is that when we're in a state of stress, when we're in that state of fight or flight and our sympathetic nervous system is stimulated, we're producing stress hormones on a regular basis. Digestion is not a priority. So our brain, our nervous system, our control center will not prioritize digestion when we're in a state of fight or flight, right? Naturally, we're designed to enter that state for short periods of time, so that we could flee the situation when we're literally faced with a danger. And so all the energy in our body is shunted to the muscular system, to the lungs, to those systems that require energy in order for us to get to safety quickly. But if we're constantly in that state of fight or flight all day long because of life,
life with a capital L.
We're compromising our digestion. We can't digest properly because the energy and the nervous system impulses are not driven to the digestive system. So digestion pretty much gets shut down when we're in a state of stress. So that would be the number one contributing factor. And then of course, a high consumption of processed foods, eating foods that are unnatural to our body, that are low in fiber, low in prebiotics, low in probiotics, lacking important nutrients that we need. So a lot of these processed foods are very high in sugar and chemical additives that our body cannot recognize and needs to detoxify. So naturally, a diet high in sugar and processed foods is going to contribute to digestive issues as well. And that ties into the stress, right? When we're highly stressed, we want to go for quick fixes and
comfort foods.
Yes, comfort foods and easy fast food.
Like salt and sugar, right?
Yes.
Like just the hit of... That makes me think of something that I remember when I started looking into Ayurveda. There's an old wise adage, they would always say, never eat when you're in a state of distress.
Right.
When you're in a state of acute trauma, when you're emotionally, in anger, grief, in a really acute state, obviously, they say never eat, because your body is producing a ton of cortisol for one,
right,
but a lot of other, like you said, there's stress hormones. And so there's this thing they talk about in the texts, which is that the food turns into poison.
Right.
Right? Like almost literally. I think that's so pertinent to what you're saying about, the gut-brain connection and the stress, right, being a causative factor. And so, we're looking at some fantastic products, which we'll get to in a minute, I'm sure. But what would you say, Natasha, are things that we can do to improve digestion overall, if we're looking at it from a general point of view?
Oh, there's so much we can do. And I do teach a webinar on a regular basis, at least twice a year, called the Digestion Connection, where I go into more detail about this. I'm just going to highlight maybe a few things that we can do. The first is become more mindful of our eating practices. Yes. So chewing is the first mechanical step in digestion, right? And it's a step that we often bypass or neglect when it comes to eating, because we're usually in a hurry and we're just gulping our food down. I've been guilty of it.
Me too.
But stopping and consciously chewing our food until it can no longer be chewed anymore will aid the digestive process. It'll take a lot of the strain off of the stomach and the liver and the intestines and all the other organs of digestion. Particularly when it comes to foods that are a bit more difficult to digest. I, for instance, used to have a really hard time digesting cabbage. I found it would cause me a lot of bloating. And then I really started to pay attention to my chewing process with cabbage. And as long as I chew it really thoroughly, I'm fine.
There you go.
Yeah.
I had a similar thing growing up in high school. I just to gulp things down without chewing, and I constantly have gas.
Yeah.
And as soon as I started chewing until it's liquefied, the gas just completely disappeared.
Amazing.
It's the first point of contact.
Right. Yeah. It's the first step. So that's my first recommendation. And then there's wonderful products that we can use. Probiotics. Everybody's heard of probiotics. Probiotics are the friendly bacteria that reside in our gut. We typically don't get enough probiotics or good bacteria through our diets. Not in this culture anyways. Right. Most cultures have some kind of probiotic food, right, that they often eat before or after a meal. And we're definitely starting to, we're getting there, right?
We are.
Especially if you shop at a health food store. So there's lots of foods like sauerkraut. Sauerkraut is probably one of the most common traditional foods that has probiotics in it. Real fermented pickles, kimchi, kombucha, apple cider vinegar, and my favorite is a product called cultured coconut. It's a kefir, so it's a fermented coconut milk kefir, vegan, that contains by far more probiotics in 1 tablespoon than any other probiotic supplement on the market. It's a fantastic product. We've had really great feedback about this product from customers. People even give it to their pets, and you don't need a lot. They recommend 1 tablespoon, but I always tell people to start with just a teaspoon once a day for a week or two before increasing. And it's really fantastic for aiding digestion, so all the symptoms we talked about, digestive distress. It seems to help a lot of people. So consuming a fermented food at least once a day along with your meal is a great idea, or even on an empty stomach. The cultured coconut could be used on an empty stomach, or putting a little bit of apple cider vinegar in some water, drinking that is a great idea too. And then there's teas that help with digestion. So I love fennel seed. Fennel seed is great for the gas and the bloating, right? It was traditionally used in gripe water, which is used for colicky babies. So just taking a pinch of actual fennel seeds, which you can buy in the spice section of the store, and chewing those. It's nice to soak them in some hot water first, because they're very rough.
They're rough.
They're rough. But you can soak them in some hot water and chew a pinch of fennel seeds if you're experiencing gas or bloating. It gets rid of the gas and bloating instantly. It's amazing. You can also buy tea. It's just not quite as concentrated, or you can boil the seeds for in hot
5 minutes
water,
or so, yeah.
strain them, and then drink the water. But chewing on the actual seeds is probably the most potent and gives you the best results in a short amount of time. And then ginger, peppermint are great as well. So depending on your constitution, depending on whether you're prone to more heat or more coldness, you might do better on one or the other, and you might have a preference seasonally as well. Ginger is quite warming, peppermint is very cooling. But exploring and experimenting with some of those things is a really good idea to see what works best for you.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
We could go on and on.
I know, I did want to touch on mindful eating as well.
Yes.
So again, that's a whole other webinar. But just making conscious choices around food. So becoming more and more aware of the whys behind we eat. Why is it that we're reaching for food? You know, anytime we do go to reach for something to eat, maybe pause for a moment and ask yourself, am I really hungry right now? Does my body need nourishment right now? Is there something else driving me to eat? We're humans.
Totally.
And it's normal to eat emotionally from time to time, but if we're turning to food every time we're experiencing some heightened emotion, then maybe there's something else to address there. So choosing mindfully and sitting down and making eating more of a ritual and taking a breath and really appreciating food, taking a moment to look at the colors and notice the textures and the flavors as we eat is really important.
Those are so fundamental. They're so simple, but they're so difficult.
Right?
Like, is there genuine hunger? Number one. Like,
yes.
We have to really be present in order to assess that. And I know, like, I catch myself, right, sometimes watching something while I'm eating, or I'm reading something while I'm eating. I think so many of us do that. But then I notice that when my attention is on the reading, I chew faster. I'm not paying as much attention to how well I'm chewing. So those details make a huge difference.
Yeah.
Right? It's not just the what of eating, it's the how, right?
Yeah.
That's fantastic. Wow, we've covered a lot in a short period of time, and we could do a lot more, but that's super, super awesome. Thank you so, so much. So for those of you who would like more information on educational webinars and learning opportunities, please visit our classes and services tab on our website at www.naturalfoodpantry.ca, and please be sure to subscribe to our newsletter via email and follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube for more educational offerings from fantastic people like Natasha Villeneuve. Thanks, everyone. Thank you, Natasha.
Thank you.
And stay healthy, everyone. Cheers.
Bye.